Yo, Ryan Clark is a friend of the channel, man.
Yes, 1,000%. 1,000%.
Ryan Clark. Ryan Clark is a friend of the channel, man. So, this guy, Ryan Clark, one of the bigger, more prominent voices on ESPN, right? Now, mind you, I didn't see this, of course, live or on ESPN because I don't really watch ESPN. I had to see this in retrospect. But on a Friday episode of the Get Up show on ESPN, the panel was getting into a lively debate about the Eagles versus Cowboys game that had happened the night before on that Thursday night, and one of the commentators that frequently, well, he's new to ESPN because he used to be doing other stuff, but this guy Schrager, Peter Schrager, that's his name, the white guy, Peter Schrager. He has a long career as a sports journalist and whatnot. And so now he's a talking head on ESPN, gives his opinions on sports, the NFL in particular. And they got into a heated debate talking about the aftermath of the game, Cowboys Eagles. And Ryan Clark, basically dismissively stated that Peter Schrager's opinion is as such because he's a non-player. And Peter Schrager took exception to that. He felt as though Ryan Clark was belittling his point of view simply because he's not a former player. And so it's dovetailed into this conversation around Ryan Clark and how he contributes to sports media. Dave Portnoy, somebody who's big in the alternative sports media world, has a new show on Fox, went off on Ryan Clark for the way that he treated Peter Schrager during this segment of Get Up. And he called him a race baiter and all kinds of stuff. So we'll try to set the stage here. So this says Dave Portnoy blasts race baiter Ryan Clark over Peter Schrager's squabble. Ryan Clark is still taking heat.
Sharing screen?
Say that again?
I said, are you sharing screen?
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, I forgot. Here we go. Yeah. And Ryan Clark, man, you got to set the stage for this guy so much you forget to do basic stuff. So this says Dave Portnoy blasts race baiter Ryan Clark over Peter Schrager's squabble. Ryan Clark is still taking heat. Barstool Sports honcho Dave Portnoy called out the ESPN personality after Clark publicly shut down reporter Peter Schrager in a debate regarding the NFL. On Friday's Get Up, Clark dismissed Schrager's opinion in a live debate, telling Schrager that's the non-player in you. That spurred plenty of backlash, including from Schrager, who told Clark not to belittle him. And on Monday, Portnoy got his shot in. So I'm not going to read the quote because we're going to play the video. Clark has not been shy about bringing up racial issues in sports debates, famously getting into it with Robert Griffin III and bringing up the former quarterback's choices of partners during an argument over WNBA stars Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. If you're RG3, when's the last time within your household you've had a conversation about what she's dealing with? You haven't been able to do that because in both of your marriages, you've been married to white women. You haven't had opportunities to have those conversations to educate you on what they're feeling, what black women deal with, what they're seeing when they think of a young Angel Reese. Clark later apologized for the incident. The latest incident with Schrager also resulted in an apology and apparently rising tensions behind the scenes at ESPN. Front Office Sports later reported that Clark could be on thin ice with ESPN after the latest issue. Clark and Schrager appeared on NFL Live together on Monday. So that's that. So first, what we're going to do is play the initial incident in which Ryan Clark dismisses him. And then we're going to play what Portnoy said about Ryan Clark. So let me just make sure I got the right clips queued up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. Yeah, Ryan Clark is internet gold right now, bro. I can't believe it. I cannot believe it.
Hey, we don't call you a friend of the channel if not for being internet gold.
You gotta earn it, bro. You gotta earn a friend of the channel.
So here's that exchange that went down on last Friday's episode of Get Up.
AJ Brown, which is this number one wide receiver who got one target all night, and then you got CeeDee Lamb.
You can turn it up, son.
saying you could have it both ways. 4 seconds left.
Let me back it up. I'll back it
up. Okay.
Okay, you look at AJ Brown, which is this #1 wide receiver who got 1 target all night, and then you got CeeDee Lamb. But that's the
when was the one target?
That's the target. But
though.
I'm saying
when was the one
I'm
target?
saying you could have it both ways.
4 seconds left in the game on 2nd and 11. It was the one target. He runs the out route.
You wake up this morning saying
got
AJ Brown had a better day than CeeDee Lamb.
But you know what you wake up saying though? AJ Brown's team is 1-0.
Of course,
right? Like that's what
I get it.
But the thing is this though, and we shouldn't do this on TV. And so I apologize if people think this is rude. That's the non-player.
Oh, stop. That's no. That CeeDee Lamb is.
Let me tell you why. I'm not saying.
I'm not looking at fantasy football, Ryan. I'm not. Don't belittle me like that. I could come in and say, as 3 ex-players are saying one thing, and give an alternative perspective that maybe CeeDee Lamb did play well. And
Peter, what I need for you to do is not get mad and let me finish for once.
Okay.
It wasn't about you. It was going to be about me.
Okay.
As a player, I can't speak for CeeDee Lamb. I'm speaking for.
All right, so that was that. And then here's Portnoy's response. Here's what Portnoy said in response to this on his. Well, it's an established show, but it's being licensed by Fox News at the moment. Not Fox News, Fox Sports. It's being licensed by Fox Sports. So, and by the way, shout out to Jason Williams. Did not know that he was on this show. But shouts out to Jason Williams over there on the right hand side there.
White chocolate over there.
Yeah, white chocolate Jason Williams, man. So yeah, here's Portnoy letting the world know how he feels about Ryan Clark.
One of those guys that thinks that you guys are lower than me because I played and you didn't.
I always and I was going to ask the Gruden and Olsen that question. That of course is a big debate. Ryan Clark went after Peter Schrager from NFL Network. They got in debate about a game, and Ryan Clark, who's one of the all-time jerks in the history of mankind, he is a race baiter. You can say that. I don't know if we can say this. He is. The only time he's in the news is when he's picking fights and then apologizing. But he yelled at Peter Schrager, basically saying, "Hey, shut up! You didn't play football. You can't talk." I've never understood that. Like, I get playing the game, but there's a lot of morons who play the game. There's a lot of bad GMs who played football. There's a lot of bad coaches who played football. Watching football, being around sports. So I appreciate you, Jay Will, saying you didn't have to play the game. Certainly not to have an opinion.
There you go. So, as of the time of this stream, there has been no Ryan Clark apology. Well, at least not one that's gone public. Just want to clarify that. So what do you make of this whole ordeal?
You know, Ryan Clark, I get where he's coming from. I know exactly what he's on. I know exactly what he's up to as a person. With that being said, if I noticed that, I'm sure a lot of other people have noticed what his agenda is on air. Ryan Clark, his duty, and I agree with this Portnoy guy, that Ryan Clark's job, and we discussed this when we were talking about the RG3 thing, is that his duty is to be the race baiter. His duty is to cape for black quarterbacks, no matter what. I'm sitting there trying to watch. What game was I watching? Was it the Thursday? Was it? Yeah, I think it was. Because I think they covered the game too. I don't know if it was on ESPN. I don't know.
No, if it was him, it had to be last night.
No, because I don't know where it was, but I thought it was him. I thought it was Ryan Clark, because they were talking about either Jalen Hurts or something like that. But it was, everything was like how intelligent he is,
right?
Great decision making.
Yeah.
How smart he is. Did I mention how intelligent he is? And then it's this thing where he's like, I'm here to flip the narrative. My job is to flip the narrative. Black quarterbacks are always getting this stigma that they can't throw. Lamar Jackson can throw. You know, he's one of the best passers of the ball in the league. You know, he's gonna do that. Which, you know, there needs to be an alternative view on some of these people. But at the same time, with Ryan Clark, it's at any cost. It's at any cost. He's going to plant his flag and defend black athletes. Some people could say, well, what's the problem? What's wrong with that, man? Because there's so many other people tearing us down. Look, I don't have a problem with that being his agenda. My thing is what Ryan Clark is that it's not subtle. It's not subtle. And I feel as though he can do this, but not be so obvious. I really feel like he can do this less obviously. But he clearly feels as though he's the guy that snuck in. He's the guy that snuck in these doors of oppression. And and he's here to balance the scales. And he's ready to take on these white men on stage to put them in their place, to let them know that black people are articulate, black people that's his whole angle. And my whole thing is, look, that's cool. But sometimes you got to realize you at work. And Ryan Clark, in that moment, and in other moments, but specifically this one, since we're talking about it, he forgot he was at work. And this Schrager guy, this probably part of the ESPN Disney deal for him to be jumping over from NFL to be sitting on anything.
No, he was on there before that. I think he signed over there as a free agent, but he is new over there. He's definitely new.
Yeah, but you know, this guy, I mean, look at his face.
Mm.
I mean, this is how he goes through life. Everything's all smiles and stuff, and you know, nobody has a problem with Schrager. Even if you don't like his takes, you can't sit there and say he don't know ball because he hasn't played. So I'll tackle that part of the argument too, because I'm quite frankly tired of that as well. Where, you know, especially NBA players, they're the most to do it. You ain't never played it, you ain't never, you know, blah, 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 so you can't speak on it. It's like, well, why the hell am I watching then? Should I not watch you? Should you not get a check? But I'll get into that later. But all in all, I want my first statement that I wanted to make is that Ryan Clark's agenda is obvious to me. If I was a white man in America trying to just watch sports, I would be fed up to hear with Ryan Clark, because he will forego an honest take in order to promote his agenda. But honestly, it's part of the agenda of ESPN, because he's backed to do this. They know what he's up to. They want him to do it. But sometimes Ryan Clark takes it too far. So I don't know at what point Ryan Clark is going to realize that he's a pawn of ESPN to spew this type of stuff, and you're not actually tricking anybody. So at one point, I don't know where that's going to click to him, that you didn't sneak in. They wanted you to do this. And you're driving down sports. Nobody really, you know, sports takes are disgusting when it's always race baited. Sometimes I just want to hear a sports take. And if the quarterback didn't play good that night, if AJ Brown looked a step slow, wasn't getting any separation, that should be called out. But hey, I can go on. Well, what are your thoughts, man, on Ryan Clark? Okay, sunning this Peter Schrager guy, and then getting called out for being a race baiter and being on thin ice. There's a lot going on here with Ryan Clark. What are your thoughts, man?
It is. I was going to bring up that point. Mm-hmm. You know, he's a microcosm of the way ESPN runs its operation. Mm-hmm. So I would not characterize Ryan Clark as a pawn, because I think in order to be a pawn, you have to be a part of something, not knowing what they're trying to put you in position to do. Okay. I think Ryan Clark knows that he's there for that.
He's more of a rook or a bishop.
Yeah. Ryan Clark, I believe, knows that that's what they want him there for, and he's okay with it because he loves doing it. So I wouldn't even. I don't call him a pawn. He's more like he's a knight or a bishop. He's one of the pieces that has a direct goal and is not there to be a sacrificial lamb.
I hear that.
So he's a part. He's all for this, and he's not the only person. I talked about this before. They've created a interesting situation on that network, from what I can tell, with those particular shows, especially when they have white guys and black guys talking about the various topics, because it is very obvious to me that it doesn't matter whether it's against the prevailing idea. Most of the black opiners on ESPN are going to cape for the black athlete. In the vast majority of it has to be something so egregious that there's no way to explain your way around it. Like Jalen Carter. So you can't really defend that because the dude spit on the guy in 4K high def. You can't defend that. So it has to be that level of egregious for them to really side with what everybody else is saying. But if there's any subjectivity involved, they're going to do that because they feel as though it's their responsibility to not let their community down. And they feel as though if they are critiquing the black athlete in a roundabout way, it's symbolic of them letting their community down. I truly do believe that that's where it comes from. I think that when Ryan Clark and the rest of these guys on ESPN, Marcus Spears, the guy who used to be a front office person in the league, damn it, his name is eluding me at the moment, but he's on there a lot. I'll think of it. But when they get on there and they're routinely doing this, to me, it's very obvious that there's a reason beyond merely sports as to why they have that particular take, and it becomes very Louis Riddick. That's what I was trying to think of. Louis Riddick is his name.
Louis Riddick.
Louis Riddick.
I
Yeah.
can't stand Louis Riddick. Oh my God.
So whenever they get on their various shows and there's white guys present, at least for me, it creates an uncomfortable vibe that permeates the entire show.
Yeah, I agree.
Because inevitably, those guys are going to have their takes, and the non-black people on the show are going to have a different take. And the way that it's sort of subtly insinuated is if you don't agree with what the black guys on the show are saying, you're exposing your latent racism. Or at the very least, you're exposing your latent racial bias.
Yes.
It's very uncomfortable.
Or your self-hate.
Yes. Stephen A. Smith is the king of it. But Ryan Clark is second in command, and then all the rest of these guys fall in line. Louis Riddick, Marcus Spears, they all do it.
It was Louis Riddick. I think he was the one calling the game. So it was somebody. I was like, come on, bro. So it was Louis Riddick that was doing that, and it was annoying me.
That would make sense because he does it. He does it very often.
Yeah.
And so what I don't like is the dichotomy that's created when that takes place. So I just kind of feel like don't even bring white people onto the show. If you're gonna do that, then just have a segment. Then just make sure that all the segments are just former athletes who are black or black commentators, because you're inevitably creating that tense environment that is uncomfortable for people to watch. And it's, in my opinion, unreasonable to people like Chris Russo or before Max Kellerman or anybody who does come onto that show who's not white, who just has the perspective that they have, and it's rooted in a sports take. That's it. But again, when we're in this SJW world and you can basically connect any dot you want, you can find those creative ways to make it about race because everything's about race. And how can you at that point disagree if you want to seem like you're on the right side of history? You're going to have to fall in line and agree. So from that standpoint, I am not averse to calling people like Ryan Clark and Stephen A. Smith race baiters, because I think that they willfully do this stuff. And it makes it a bad sports debating product to watch, in my opinion. I can't stand it.
I can't watch it.
Now, to speak to the point about, whether you played or not, that's a redirect if I ever heard one. It's bogus. You mentioned NBA players who do it religiously. I'm I'm over this BS. All right. I would rather listen to Michael Wilbon talk football than Ryan Clark.
1,000%.
Michael Wilbon is a journalist. Ryan Clark is a former player. In my opinion, when it comes to opining on football, give me Michael Wilbon.
Yep.
Take it over to basketball. I would rather hear somebody who didn't play basketball talk basketball as long as they're smart enough and insightful enough before I listen to Kendrick Perkins talk basketball. Kendrick Perkins is a former player. So to me, one's authority to talk about the game in any capacity when it comes to sports media has less to do with whether you played and more to do with how studied you are and how good you are at doing media.
Right.
The better you are at doing media, the more well-spoken you are and the more studied you are, the more engaging of a commentator I find you to be. And whether you played or not carries less weight for me than that other stuff. So I'll take Colin Cowherd talking football or basketball before Kendrick Perkins. I just will. Sorry.
Yep.
Sorry, but I will. You know what I'm saying? Give me Chris Broussard and you can have Channing Frye.
Oh Lord, please take him now.
I don't care. I don't give a damn about this you didn't play stuff. I don't care about that. You know, just like I don't give a damn about NBA players who say you can't talk because you never won. I'm tired of this stuff. NBA players love to do that, particularly with Charles Barkley. Oh,
Yep.
you didn't win a championship, therefore your opinion is invalidated. Says
Right.
who?
Right.
Like, is what Charles Barkley saying correct? Like, do you have poor shot selection? Do you need to work on your free throws? Do you need to have more balance in your game so that you're not taking so many threes? Do you need to stop turning the ball over? If he's saying all of that stuff and it's true, whether he won or not has nothing to do with the validity of those statements.
A redirect.
Yeah, but when you're defensive because you know there's truth to what they're saying, you'll redirect it and take it into all different kinds of conversations. So whether it's somebody who won a championship or whether it's somebody who never played, I ain't trying to hear all of that BS. If what they're saying is correct and if they have the proper amount of media savvy and they're well studied, whether they are a former player or not is completely inconsequential. So those guys can miss me with that BS. And ESPN really needs to think about an overhaul in terms of the people that they got over there because it has gone into complete and utter shit.
It's a sideshow over there, bro. It's not. I can't even. There was a part of me that could tolerate it, but then there was one day I was getting annoyed by and you know, I'm not trying to be some misogynist. It's crazy that I have to preface things like this, but I was getting annoyed by there's some woman on Get Up right now that is so. Is it Get Up? Is the one with Greenberg on there?
Yeah, let's Get Up. Yeah.
She has the most annoying voice and she doesn't know anything. I said, why is she here? She's trying to give me sports bets. This woman doesn't even know what the hell's going on here. I'm taking the over on something crazy. I'm taking the over on Kyler Murray rushing yards because everybody knows he likes to get out of the pocket. I was like, that's not a take at all. That's not a take at all. To the point where I was like, you know what? All of these sports networks are doing over and unders. To the point where I'm like, there's some collusion going on here. I'm gonna start betting against these people. I'm gonna start taking the under one and keep pushing the overs. Because why are y'all telling me I'm on sports bets? That's another situation. But ESPN has gotten so bad because I used to be able to tolerate it. I can listen over things. I can fast forward through a racy conversation where they're talking about race. Like, look, I don't want to hear about that here, man. If I want to know about some real issues, real systemic issues, I'm not coming to a sports channel to do it. Look, I get it, man. There was a stigma out there on black quarterbacks. I get it. There was a stigma on black linebackers. I get it. There was a stigma on black coaches.
Can I say something, for example, in reference to that? We got to stop this stuff. And part of what is annoying about this is we need to stop banging the gavel when it comes to these tropes underlying against black athletes when no one's saying that anymore. No one's doing that. I can't find a credible voice in media anywhere, whether it's traditional media or new media, podcasts, whatever. I cannot find anybody with a shred of credibility who says Lamar Jackson's not good.
They can't say that anymore.
Who says Lamar Jackson can't throw or isn't accurate or isn't one of the best quarterbacks? I don't know anybody who's saying that.
Well,
so what is this imaginary person that you're bringing up in an attempt to be aligned with your agenda to keep up to prop up your people and defend your community, right? Who is this imaginary straw man that you're thinking of when you're bringing up these points? No one's saying that. So part of what's the last thing. Part of my aggravation with that is this idea that there's this rampant rhetoric that still persists when no one's really saying it. Correct. No one's really saying that anymore. All people are saying nowadays is if you're not good, you're not good. But no one does that anymore. So it just makes it all the more aggravating.
No, and I agree. And that's the thing, that these guys came up in an era where that stuff was still applicable, though. Like I didn't even like it. I mean, the stuff about linebackers, the Wonderlic test, all of those things, that's what was in the media when these guys were actively playing. And so their thing was, I believe, their whole thing was, I'm gonna get in here and I'm gonna right the ship, and I'm gonna promote these guys to the point where it's so obvious and disgusting. It's like, hey, look, bro, sometimes you could be objective. Lamar is awesome, and I'm not going to sit here and say that he's not, but if there was a playoff game and he missed a throw, you're going to have to call that out. You know what I'm saying? Well, they didn't call out Tom Brady. Touche. The touche. They were capable for Tom Brady, but that's a different situation, man. In the sense that, because that was his own situation. Because that was a situation where they loved Tom Brady. I mean, the media absolutely loved Tom Brady, but the Tom Brady era is over.
They love Lamar too, though. It's crazy. Well, Lamar gets the benefit of the same double standard that Brady got back then today, because when he plays bad, it's they're switching up the coaching, or the coaching let them down, or the team overall forgets their identity. And when the team wins, it's because of how awesome he is. Whether he plays well or not, he's attributed a lot of the credit for the success of the team. So my thing is with this kind of stuff, and I get it, like from the perspective of people who came from previous generations, they probably have scar tissue still. Yes. And so they're going to still lament as if that's the current state of affairs, but it's not. And to a lot of people nowadays who are keeping up with this stuff and consuming it, they see that it's not. And so you're alienating a lot of people who don't have that perspective. And I think people just find it aggravating to deal with.
Yeah, it's kind of, and I hear you, man. And it's kind of like one of those things, like Madden ratings, for instance. Like this was going on when I was younger, and I'm sitting there playing Madden, and there's some guys that are fast that were quarterback, and they were black, and they were fast. So the way they would combat the overall rating is to make their awareness low. And it's subtle stuff like that. Growing up seeing these things that you go, well, he's not smart. Well, he's not smart enough. Or if his awareness was just as average as the regular average quarterback, his rating to be through the roof. So there has to be something, or whatever. It's stuff like that these guys saw growing up. Because I'm not going to sit here and act like there aren't microaggressions out here. I'm not going to sit here and act like there aren't people out here that actually look after their own community and rather promote their own people. Great white hypes are actually a thing. And I'm not going to sit here and act like it's not. However, all right, turning everything into a race conversation is ridiculous. Especially, like you said, when you're the only one at this point banging this drum, because nobody's attacking Lamar anymore. That Lamar stigma happened when he was coming out of college. It was coming out of college, But, after 3 MVPs or whatever he's gotten at this point, I think at this point, you're just looked at as a hater to say that he can't play quarterback in the NFL. You're actually an idiot, So banging this drum on these guys, bringing a drum up for a guy like Jalen Hurts, who just finished winning the Super Bowl his damn self. You can't say that these guys aren't good. So for them to be coming out and saying all of these things and stuff like that's what makes it annoying, because when I see the average white person talk about these topics or whatever, they're pretty much echoing what you're saying. The same thing is like, look, I just care if the guy's good or not. I don't care what color he is, because honestly, we're past that. And if you look at the way that quarterback is being played nowadays, even if it's a white guy, that guy better be able to run. So if y'all saw JJ McCarthy last night, that boy got motion. And Bo Nix got motion. Jackson Dart, if you can't run, you're done. So the archetype of quarterback has changed. What has it changed after? Somebody could piece that together. But the point I'm trying to make here is that people just want good play nowadays. I think those days, as you mentioned, are over due to various reasons. But it's not the same machine they're fighting against anymore. So hearing about it all the time, it's not necessary. And as you saw there, I can get into the minutia of where these guys are coming from, because there are people that are running around and still feel that way. But at the same time, when people are just trying to have regular ass sports conversations, there's no need to bring that in here. You know what I'm saying? Because that turns the conversation to a whole nother animal that it don't need to be. So yeah, that's the reason why I can't watch it anymore. Because I think that there is a natural moving on that people are having, and people like Ryan Clark are here to remind us to think like that again. And that's why I don't like it. So, they can kick rocks with those things, man.
You also said you wanted to speak on the former player thing.
Yeah. I'll touch on that real quick. But yeah, you pretty much hit the nail on the head, in a sense that, with these former athletes, I would rather hear somebody like Colin Cowherd talk about basketball, than Big Perk. Me as a regular sports fan, I might not have the best sports takes or whatever out there or whatever, but I'll have a sports take. If somebody asks me about, why I thought South Florida was going to beat Boise State, I can tell you that. Somebody would think South Florida was going to beat Florida. I can tell you that. Now they're not going to beat Miami. All right. And I can tell you that too. Okay. So, but I got sports takes, and that's fine, but I'm not allowed to have sports takes because I didn't play football professionally. It's bogus, man. So, and if we can't have sports takes, then we shouldn't be watching it. And if we're not watching it, you're not important anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they just need to sit down and be humble and take criticism, be a man. But all of this deflecting and throwing stuff in our face, oh, you weren't there, man, shut up, dog. You know what I'm saying? So, but I'm telling you, man, these guys getting all of these, commas in they check, they start to lose touch with reality and feel like they're above criticism just because their checks are bigger than mine. And it's like, nah, bro, you're not. And if you were supposed to make that free throw in the clutch, you should have made it. So, yeah, so these athletes, the ones that feel that way, they can kick rocks. Not all of them say that, but, people like Ryan Clark that do say it, yeah, they can kick rocks.
Yeah, they can. I agree. And not all of them say it, but I believe most of them think that way. I think most of them who are former players, they think that their opinion holds more weight because they played.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I agree. I mean, I hear where you're coming from in terms of there are pockets of those long-standing tropes that still exist, but I think overall the general tenor of sports media is one in which nobody's really thinking about that anymore. And I think the majority of people with credibility don't care. Like I said, no one's sitting around saying Jalen Hurts isn't good. No one's sitting around saying Lamar's not good. No one's saying any of that stuff. Even the ones who are marginal and haven't had the best career up to this point, people like Kyler Murray, a lot of people in the media still couch themselves when talking about people like him. So like no one's really doing this stuff anymore. Yet I can predict every single time if I see a segment when they're talking about any kind of topic, if Ryan Clark is on the show or Riddick or any one of these people, I don't need to watch it to know what opinion they had. I don't need to watch it.
Yep.
Because I know what they're gonna say. And at that point, when you're that consistent with something that can be at times as objective as sporting events and sport outcomes, where you have numbers and statistics and data to inform your opinion, and you still go a consistent way all the time, that ceases to be about sports, and you're giving that take because it comes from a different place.
Yep.
And I think that persistent theme alienates a lot of people who are coming here to watch it objectively for sports consumption. And in my opinion, it just becomes uncomfortable to watch. Like I am not a white knighter here, no pun intended. I can give a damn about Peter Schrager or Chris Russo or any of these people. I don't give a damn. But the thing is, they've been in the sports media game for decades. So, like, to put them in this weird compromised position in which them not kowtowing to a particular point of view creates this sort of weird environment in which they have an agenda themselves that is unbecoming of, being progressive or friendly or an ally. That to me is unreasonable. And I feel like that's the environment that's being created with people like Ryan Clark on these shows.
Yeah, I hope this doesn't grow wings and become a thing later. I think most of the people that I've seen that have sports takes, on the internet, like just regular everyday people, they don't play into that. At least I don't hear them saying that. Now there's some people out there that would, they'll say there is a time and a place for a situation where you feel like somebody's being treated a certain way because of where they come from. There's a time and a place for those conversations, but they do not belong in every conversation. And especially if there's a situation where, where there's a pretty much unanimous situation of, this guy can play. It's not called for. So that's where my aggravation lies. It's too much. It's too often. And again, sports is a place where a lot of people can come and hang out, and they're just being divisive. So don't care for it, man.
Listen, a great example of this is several weeks ago, before the season started, Stephen A. Smith and Louis Riddick and Chris Russo were on First Take, and they were talking about Micah Parsons. I'm pretty sure it was Micah Parsons. And Chris Russo was coming at it from the standpoint of, like, how much would it potentially wreck your friend? No. It wasn't Micah Parsons. It was Terry McLaurin. That's who it was. It was a receiver. It was Terry McLaurin. So Chris Russo was basically saying, we've seen historically franchises being reticent to pay that kind of money to a receiver because it can hurt your team in other ways. It's not a good long-term investment for the franchise to pay the receiver that much money. So Chris Russo was on the side of, I would not pay Terry McLaurin. I know he wants an extension. I wouldn't pay him. I don't think it's good for the team, which I think is a reasonable sports take.
I wouldn't have paid him personally.
Stephen A. Smith and Louis Riddick basically made it a race conversation. They did. They were basically making it about how a black man feels dealing with contract negotiations. That's what they turned the conversation into. Look it up. I'm not making this up. So essentially, what you're doing at that point is you're creating a dichotomy within the conversation.
Correct.
In which, if Chris Russo continues to maintain his stance, now Chris Russo is anti-black man.
Yeah.
When all Chris Russo was saying was, I don't believe in paying receivers like that.
Which you
so
should.
that's the kind of
case.
That's the kind of stuff that I'm objecting towards.
Mm-hmm.
So it isn't stuff where it's like, okay, if we're talking about a larger societal observation within the context of sports and you want to take it there, even though I'm over that too, fine, I can allow that because at least it makes some sense.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're talking about stuff like that,
right,
where it's literally just an innocuous conversation about a contract negotiation,
correct,
and you're turning it, so you got Chris Russo and Louis Riddick, you got Stephen A. and Louis Riddick on one side talking about how a black man wants to be treated with a contract, and then you got lone white guy Chris Russo said, I don't pay receivers. How does that look? How does that look? And then it becomes uncomfortable to watch, seriously.
No,
so That's the kind of shenanigery that goes on ESPN, bro.
Yeah.
And I think people are just over it. So, if Ryan Clark is on thin ice, maybe that's not the worst thing in the world. Maybe it's time for him to move on because he is like the king of some of this stuff. Him and Stephen A. Smith are 1A and 1B when it comes to that kind of stuff.
I mean, his issue here is that he didn't get race. It wasn't a race situation. It was between CeeDee Lamb and AJ Brown. And the issue here is that he said something about you don't know ball because you didn't play. And that's not his script. Your script is to say that somebody's being marginalized. Now, what you gonna do if when the debate is against two black guys? You gonna pick the darker skinned one? Come on, Ryan Clark. You grasping for straws if that's what you want, man. And that's what I'm saying, dog. Like, that's what they really should do. They should, but they're not gonna do that. They're always gonna make it this race situation. And it's like, come on, man. Man, I can find race in any damn thing. Trust me, I used to.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can find it. But it's in some context, it's not even worth bringing up. And when you're talking about sports in many contexts, it's not worth bringing up, man. So
you can always connect dots if you want.
Yeah,
those dots are always available to you to connect if you want.
Yeah,
if you squint hard enough, you can always connect those dots.
Yeah. And I'm a wizard with it, but I choose not to because it's not always. It's like I was saying before with the Charleston White situation. What is that going to do? Me articulating that. What is that doing? You know what I'm saying? Just throw the ball better. Maybe I'm not. Maybe people won't be having this discussion if you threw the ball better. Because quarterbacks like Anthony Richardson. Yeah, I'm gonna keep bagging on him because it's quarterback like Anthony Richardson. Ain't nothing personal. You play professional sports and get paid millions of dollars, so I can talk about it. And it's just that you can't throw. You're not a quarterback, bro. Sorry, a hell of an athlete, but you can't throw.
Yeah,
and I should be able to say that, and so should Portnoy and Schrager and Mad Dog Russo because it's pretty obvious.
Yeah, I'm not trying to, far be it from me to like talk about a person's livelihood. Like, I'm not trying to sit up here and say ESPN needs to get rid of Ryan Clark, but there's a reason why their viewership has eroded, and the only reason why it hasn't eroded to a greater degree is, in my opinion, because they don't have competition.
Yes, I'm enough.
I think that if they had substantial competition, it would have eroded even more than it already has. 100%. But there's a reason why the erosion is taking place, and I think people are tired of this. And them being tired of it, and I'm one of those people who are tired of it, and I'm a colored guy. Okay,
right.
people
colored athlete.
Right. People being tired of it does not reveal their inherent bias. So, it's just, hopefully they figure it out, but they probably won't because they're too big to fail. So there's no need for them to figure it out.
Yeah, I don't know who to shout out for that one because ESPN.
Nobody.
Yeah, ESPN, y'all trash, bro.
Matter of fact, I'll shout out Michael Wilbon. Shouts out to Michael Wilbon.
Yeah, shout out to Wilbon, man. Shout out to